Hello everybody and welcome back to VFR as we continue our series and journey learning the PMDG DC-6. We're going to head on over here. Today we are going to be taking a somewhat quick flight in this U.S. Air Force. At this point it would be a C-118. You can pick up this livery on flightsim.to, shameless plug. We're going to be taking this thing around the coast of Iceland, looking at ORBX's new free Iceland scenery as well, or Iceland mesh. And we're going to be adding a little bit of complexity to our DC-6 experience. So let's hop into the flight deck and we will go through what's going on today. So welcome back up into the flight deck. And there's a couple things that we're going to be incorporating now. If you haven't seen kind of the first couple of videos I've done on the PMDG DC-6, those are linked. They'll be in the same playlist as this. But essentially, we've run through everything with the automated flight engineer a couple times now. And now it's time to start taking the reins from him. This is it's almost a daunting task. There's a lot of things that we could take from him. But you got to start somewhere. And we're going to start on the ground. So if I go over into our tablet, we'd better turn the brightness up. So we are going to be going with the old school radio set because we're going to be using some new navigational methods. And the only thing I've enabled is realistic start. So realistic start is going to be, we're going to be using a slightly different procedure for starting the engines. And it won't be as easy. It might be a little more finicky to get them started. But we will cross that bridge when we get to it. But that's kind of the settings setup we're looking. We're adding realistic start and we're going to be using the classic radios. So we're going to go over to the ramp manager here. Check and make sure I've got wheel chocks out, ground power unit on. We've got all the doors open, that's fine. Let's load up with fuel. We're going to set fuel 50% again. Just keep that simple. And we're going to add some cargo. Let's go about 17,000 pounds, 30,000, not empty. And this is really cool. I do enjoy how it populates the cargo in the back. That's awesome. Super immersive. And we are about ready to get started. So let's make sure that the ground power unit is on. One other thing we're going to try is a slightly modified track IR setting. So we'll try this out at least for the startup. And if this works nicely, we will keep it. If it doesn't, we will stop using it. So starting up, we need to make sure our ground power is on. So I'm going to come up here and go to check the light. We've got ground power. We're going to go on to ground power. And we're going to ask our friends in the cockpit to run the before start process. Beautiful clear day at here. We're at Keflavik in western Iceland. We're going to be flying over to an airport on the other side of Iceland. Let me see. I think it's Egilsstaðir, but that may not be the Icelandic pronunciation. That might be the Eastern American pronunciation. It should be about an hour-long flight. And essentially, we're going to be tracking a few ADFs. So we're going to be using the ADF system here to do a couple of them, to do a couple legs of the journey. And we will then, there will be a VOR kind of in the middle of the route that we can double-check against to make sure that we are, in fact, on track. And then if all else fails, we're going to be flying visually just around the southern coast of Iceland. Should be about an hour flight. And we're going to be cruising probably around 12,000 feet. We're going to bump it up a little bit because there are some pretty tall mountains.
Out. Gear pins. Removed. 3 on board. Seat belts and pedals. Adjusted. Throttles. Set to idle. Propellers.
It's good to check and double check your own throttles when they say that. All right, now the fun begins. And because I've got this kind of set up, I'm actually going to turn off track IR for a second and go into classic mode. So we are going to be following a slightly different procedure than what is in the video because that's what's in the pilot's operating handbook. I'm going straight off of that. I'm not thinking about the video because we've got the realistic engine start procedures on. Will the other way work? I don't know. I haven't tested it, but I'm going strictly off of what it says in the POH. And for that, it's largely the same. But we're going to basically be bringing the mixture in at the end once we have it got the engine firing instead of at the beginning like they have in the basic start procedure. Another change I made is I've rebound all of the custom views to the numpad. It really helps to have 9 slots for custom views instead of 6, which was what I was working with before. Okay, so the same deal as before. We're going to be starting engine 3 first. We're going to check magnetos to both, fuel pumps to low, engine selector to engine 3. It is interesting, they don't turn the magnetos to both with realistic engine start on, but I think they do with realistic engine start off. So there might be some differences in what the procedures are for the AFE depending on your realism settings. So we're here, boost pumps are on low, engine selectors on 3, magnetos to both, and we can go ahead and try and start. Now, same as before, we're listening for 12 blades.
3, 6,
Just making sure I have fuel pressure. Boost, prime, and now we're going to go right down and throw the mixture up into auto rich once we hear it catch, and then back to the center to monitor. Engine 3 RPM's going way up. I don't know why it's going way up. And that's because we had to knock the throttles back down. And that's why we monitor the engines. If I wasn't looking at this panel, I might have just kept it running, right? So we're not going to dither on this. We're just going to keep on rolling. Engine 4. Both to low. Engine start to 4. Start. Listening for 12.
3, 6, 5,
Boost and prime. Down to the bottom. Auto rich to check. And we got RPM. And basically what I've done is I've bound these 3 views to the center 3 buttons, to 2, 5, and 8 on the numpad, so I can just kind of go into line when I'm doing this procedure. Back up to the top. We're going to go to magneto 2, start engine number 2. We're going to go low boost pump. We're going to go to engines 2. And same thing, rinse and repeat.
3, 6, 5,
Boost and prime. Down to the bottom, engine auto rich. Check and see if we have life. And see here we don't have life, so I'm going to pull the mixture back out. And I'm going to come back to the top and try and refire it. Still no life, yeah. And it should be a normal, clear, not too cold day here in Iceland, but who knows. So let's just run through the flow again. We've got magnetos to both, pump low, engine selector is on 2. We're going to start the engine.
3, 6, 5,
Boost, prime, down, mixture, check. And we've got life. Okay. So I bet that's what happened because I accidentally hit the prime switch again, which is not optimal. All right, one more time. Both. Fuel pumps to low. Selector to 1. Wait for the switches to reset. We're ready to rock. Start engine 1.
3, 6, 5,
Boost and prime. Mixture to rich, and we have life. And one thing I'm trying to do is just scan all these instruments and make sure all those needles, there's nothing out weird like we had the last time when we had engine 1 go out on taxi. Looks like we have life, and if you don't believe us, we can look outside. And now would be a good time to go ahead and get the ramp manager to remove the ground power. So we're going to go to plain battery. And I'm still kind of getting used to these views, so bear with me. Ground power unit is gone. All right. And so the next thing that I've added is I'm basically going to take over all the checklists after start to before takeoff. It's not that complicated. I went through everything that they seem to do in the airplane, and especially the after start is not very involved. So, and I've written this down. I will share this when it's in a more complete form. Right now it's still kind of a draft. But basically, after start checklist, we want to make sure these boost pumps go back off. We want to make sure that our engine selector switch is off. We want to make sure our magnetos are still in both. Battery goes to plain battery. We want to make sure that the GPU has been removed. It has. We're going to make sure that the inverters are on and that our generators are on. And that the emergency lights are armed. They should be if they did the before start checklist. And now I've added a before taxi section to my checklist. Which is basically going to be, we're going to check the exterior lights, make sure they're on as required. We have our beacon light on, and I'm going to leave the rest as is for now. Our flight plan. So now I want to make sure I have these radios set up. Now the first thing we're going to be tracking is an ADF. I haven't done this in this airplane before. This is the first time I'm trying it. But we're going to be going to the Victor Mike ADF station, that NDB. And that's going to be on frequency of 375. So we'll tune that in. Now we only have one of these guys, I think. So we're going to have to tune them in one at a time. 375. And I will show the flight plan on SkyVector as we're doing this. It's not complicated, but it does have four NDBs and a VOR station. Now the next one, I'm just going to think ahead a little bit because I'm not very good at twisting knobs under pressure, is going to be 312. So let me swap the frequencies and go 3. And we can verify against, I hope that's not how it works. If there's a faster way to do this, please let me know. Because like in the Garmin's, you would just go to the other side, or on the CRJ, but I don't know. We're going down to 312. .0. Okay, so those are our first two NDBs tuned in, and now we're going to go to the VOR, which is going to be Ingo on the southern coast of Iceland, and that's going to be on 112.4. So 112.4. And just briefing the route, we're going to be flying out of Keflavik here, along the coast, at a heading of 132 for 70 miles, at which point we're going to turn left to a heading of 095 for about 63 miles. And that'll get us to our first NDBs. And we're just going to follow the coast all the way around. Okay, so that's flight plan. Next, radios are set, nav aids are set. We're going to do another engine check, make sure everything is lining up. Engines are green. So now I'm going to make sure the gust lock is disengaged. And I can tell if that is disengaged because I can't move the throttle. So the gust lock is going to be this lever here. I just pulled on it, it's disengaged. And then we can get into the next section of the flight controls, which we're going to test. Looks like we're good. Do I have rudder? I do. Okay, so we're good there. We're the only ones here, so we have taxi clearance. I've given it to us. And I'm going to just check the area. There is a ramper there. They might get in the way, but I can't tell them to move. So the area is effectively clear. So now we're going to begin our taxi out to the ramp, or out to the runway. And if I pull up Keflavik, so I can actually get the runway right. And as usual, we're on a calm day here, so we're still keeping those weather variables out of it as much as possible. We're going to be heading down to, it looks like runway 11, which should be that over there, off to our left. And we're going to do our fancy reverse thrust because why not? So area's clear, and we're going to begin pushback. So we're going back. Oops, oops, oops. I need to add a line to the checklist. We're going to add a parking brake line to the before taxi checklist. I'm going to do it right now. And you should too. Take off the parking brake before you go full thrust reverse. Parking brake. Off. Okay, parking brake off, but that stays in. Let's go back to reverse. Again, this is kind of a do as I don't do. Try to learn from me and not replicate. This is very clearly not for actual flight instruction, and if you're following this to learn how to fly the DC-6 in real life, I probably wouldn't get in that plane. And we're just going to back on out, back out of reverse, and give it a little bit of forward throttle to slow us down. Because if you turn on the parking brake, you got a very nice visual representation of what happens. We're going to put our... And now we're just going to taxi on out. I'm not turning track IR back on because I honestly don't like it with all these gauges. If you can get your custom views to work, and it might be better in the cruise, but if I can get my custom views to work, it's actually much... That's not a taxiway. If I can get my custom views to work, it's much easier to manage. And again, as we're taxiing, we're just keeping an eye on the engines, making sure they're all kind of lining up, doing what we think they're doing. As I try to do a Hornet carrier turn here. So a little bit about this airbase. This actually used to be a former NATO way station when airplanes like this were flying. They would stop here a lot for fuel in their Atlantic crossings. It was a major naval air station. So maybe we should have the Navy version of this C-118 Liftmaster, but I have not gotten around to making the Navy version yet. I will if there's interest, but for now, this is the iconic one. Again, shameless plug, you can find this on flightsim.to. I will link below. And we're just going to taxi on out. The big thing I'm trying to do here is keep the RPM out of that kind of shaky range. So if it gets into there, we're going to try and push through it, but it shouldn't need that much power, so. So we are in no hurry. We're not in it's not a race. And again, this checklist also assumes that the run-up has been done. So I haven't gotten into doing the run-up and doing all those checks. This assumes run-up has been done. We can start briefing the before takeoff checklist. Before takeoff checklist, we're going to make sure that the oil temps are in the green. They're looking okay. We're going to make sure that the carb air temp is normal. It is in the yellow, so that's okay. And we could also look at the engine visualizer here too. We're just trying to make sure that the engine is looking like we think it should. Flight instruments, we checked those, but they are still good. Cowl flaps are going to be going to 4 degrees open, and our flaps are going 20 degrees down. So once we get here, I'm going to stop and set that up. And not to speak like I know what I'm talking about, but we're going to bring the cowl flaps back to 4. And it's just tricky, but we're all just going to get them going in the same notch there. 4 degrees cowl flaps. And they would say cowl flaps set. Boost pump, nope, flaps 20 degrees down. So we're going to go flaps 20, which should be 3 notches. And I'm going to verify that just to make sure by saying we're in flap 20. Okay, so flaps 20. Cowl flaps 4 degrees open. Boost pumps are going to be as required. Now, if it's, I believe, if it's above 70 degrees outside air temperature, we would turn the boost pumps on, or 75 or 80 degrees. I'm going to leave them off for now because I don't believe we're there. But that's going to be mostly weather dependent. There's a section in the POH about when you should be turning on your boost pumps. Air conditioning controls, I'm feeling comfortable enough. Those are set. Then we want to make sure the captain's instrument and radio are inverted opposite of the first officer. And I'm going to be honest with you, I'm not quite sure what that means at this point, but we will figure it out. But that is in the list. Controls, gust lock, disengaged. We got that. Controls are free. We're good. Probably don't need 3 control checks in this procedure. And then make sure that our mixtures are in auto rich. I think theoretically we can go down to auto lean for the taxi, just to save some fuel. But we want to make sure they're back up in auto rich for the takeoff. And that is before takeoff checklist complete. So from here on out, it's going to be the same as we've done before. We're going to ask the AFE to handle the takeoff. We're going to do a... Let's see how much we have on board. We're at 90,000 pounds. We're doing a wet takeoff. We're going to go at a... we're going to rotate at 100 knots, climb out at 130 knots. Don't pull back too far or you will be struggling to gain speed the entire time, is what we learned on the last one. So pull back at 100, or rotate at 100 gently. Let it get up, accelerate to 130, and then we're pitching for 140 above 500 feet. We're more or less at sea level here. And then after that, once they have set climb power, we are going to pitch for 165 knots and begin our maneuvering out. So we're going to roll out to the runway. Give it a little knock of power. And the other thing we can do while we're doing our engine checks is just use the engine stress visualizer, because I'm not an expert in radial engines, and we're looking green. So a purist might find that to be cheating. I don't know how DC-6 pilots feel about all this, PMDG veterans, but I'll use it. We got a little bit of yellow on there, but I think that's nominal. And again, that's why I haven't turned on realistic engine damage, is because I'm still kind of looking at this and saying, I would have to go look at the manual and see what the troubleshooting steps are for that. Why would something would be yellow now? And sometimes things are okay. So we're here. We're on the runway. Same procedure as before. We're going to set a wet takeoff.
Water injection.
I'm holding down the brake.
1. 30 inches stabilize. 30 inches stabilize.
Okay, we're at 30 inches.
30 inches stabilized. Cal flaps. Cal flaps. Cal flaps set. Full power, please. Going full power. Full power set.
All right, airspeed's alive. $80. 100, rotate, not too much, not too much. And we're pitching for 130. Just let it glide off.
Buzzer ring, gear up. Gear selected up.
Yeah, if you pitch up too much and it feels all wonky, you're gonna know it. I believe that was on our tutorial flight that happened. Yeah, it's very, very obvious if you pitch up it wrong, and it'll feel bad, it'll be sluggish to climb, it's not good. So just very, very gentle when you're pulling out, when you're rotating. We're gonna pitch for 140, and this really takes some pitch. I mean, at this point, we're in real high power.
Medium
I
power.
mean, now I'm really bringing the nose back.
Power 48 inches, 2600 RPM.
And it looks like our ADF is alive. And I'm just gonna have to verify that against the chart. And again, for all my charts, I'm using Sky Vector, which I find works perfectly good for our purposes.
Medium power set. Climb power. Setting climb power.
All right, I'm going to begin our turn for 132, more or less. And we should be able to just fly in the direction of that arrow. This shouldn't be very complicated. All right, so we've got climb power set.
Climb power
Oh, there it is. I was a little early.
Enter takeoff checklist, please. After takeoff checks complete.
So yeah, one thing that would be nice is just having a list of what they're doing in the after takeoff checks. I mean, I can hear them clicking the switches. I'm not sure what they're doing or what all they're clicking there. And it's not, it's probably spelled out in the POH that comes with the DC-6. I just haven't seen it. And from here on out, as we add realism, yeah, I'm going to be going entirely off the pilot's operating handbook that comes with the DC-6. The procedures outlined in there. I'm assuming that that is set up for the most realistic operation of the aircraft. And where there's a conflict, I'm going to go in the favor of the POH. So we're pitched for about 165 knots, and we're looking pretty good. We're going to be climbing out to about 12,000 feet. There's some pretty high mountains. We should be able to clear them. I think the highest is going to be around 5,000 near us. But I do want to take it up a little higher and just see how it goes. We've been sticking around 8,000 so far. Climbing into the sun. And I guess I don't have anything to compare the new meshes for Iceland, because I haven't really flown in Iceland before. But it looks very nice. This is all the ORBX freeware. And it is a fascinating country. Alright, and as a sanity check, we're going to try... can I get this? DMA mode 2? No, probably not. We could also fly, the other thing we can do, to double check ourselves, if we want to. There is a VOR at Keflavik, which is going to be on 112.8. So I'm going to knock that out, 112.8. And we're going to be flying outbound 132. And this is not really, you know, you don't have to do this, but hey, I'm not doing anything else, and it just helps us make sure we're on track. Okay, so we're passing 4,000. I'm getting a little fast, so let's bring him nose back a little bit. I haven't messed with the gyropilot yet, because I'm actually just kind of enjoying flying it by hand right now. Got a little bit of haze up here, but it's not bad. You can see they're not quite exactly lining up, so we're on our track. Outbound from the VOR right now, but the ADF is showing a little, we're heading a little bit to the right, so we're really following that. But again, when all else fails, we're following the southern coast of Iceland. Alright, so we're climbing through 5,500. I think we're going to take a cinematic break. And I'll pop it into gyropilot by throwing gyropilot on, disconnect on, localizer, and let it do this for a while. So I will see you guys when we get back to the cruise. Alright everybody, welcome back, and we are about to level off here at 12,000 feet. So, normal level off procedure, we're just I've been working it in, easing the climb, and now we're going to hit 12,000. And I'm going to slap that on, and it should now hold. Now we did start slowing in the climb as we got higher, so that's good. Your performance is going to change as you get higher. And we're going to deal more with that in the engine management, but for now, we're not going to worry about it. Now's a good time. We're set. We're heading for the... right now we're about 37 miles from Keflavik. I don't have any... The one limitation of these NDBs and the ADF here is that it doesn't come with any distance information. So I don't know how far we are from this. We won't know we crossed it till it flips behind us. But we're going to run the cruise checklist.
Cruise power, please. City cruise power.
While we're here, I'm going to do a quick fuel tank check. We're looking okay. Engine check. Everything seems to be pointing in the same direction. So that means nothing's horribly wrong. Or everything is. The other thing I was messing around with while we were climbing up is the clock. So really we should have been timing this leg too, because we don't have any distance information. We have the NDB here, but once we cross, we're going to also be timing it on the clock here. Really what you just have to do is rotate this left to go into stopwatch mode, and then you use this to start, stop, or reset with a hold. So we'll play with that on the way too.
Cruise checks are complete.
And cruise checks are complete. The boys have got it all set up. And let's just see what they did. They've got the mixtures in auto lean. Landing gear's up, which I guess is good. Flaps are up. And so now, the only thing I'm trying to do is just pay more attention to what they're doing. So now I kind of know what I'm doing. As the pilot, I'm trying to figure out now what they're doing while I'm doing other stuff. But we're set up. We should be cruising for another 25 miles or so. We consult the charts, and then it'll be a left-hand turn to 095. Looking at our distance indicator, we're coming up on 69 miles from Keflavik, which means we're about passing over. We can kind of verify, I didn't check, but this island below us is where the NDB is. So we're going to, and you can see the ADF is starting to turn too. So that's going to actually flip around, and we're going to know that that's now behind us. Now our new course is going to be 095 for 63 nautical miles, and I'm going to go ahead and tune that in now by hitting this button, 312. And we're going to stop the timer. I'm going to hold it because that wasn't a very good time anyway. So yeah, it's just like any stopwatch. You hold that down to reset it, and we're going to start this. And again, we should be on this leg for about 18 minutes, and I'm going to bring the autopilot around to the left. And it looks like we haven't picked it up yet. I'm going to double check the number because it wouldn't be the first time. 312. 312. So we haven't picked it up yet, so we're going to be doing a little bit of dead reckoning here. Give it a little more turn. And we're going to go to 095. And I'm going to take out the Keflavik VOR because it's not... Well, I'll leave it in. It's helpful to know how far we are from Keflavik, just because then we can... If we get confused, we can kind of... I got to be ahead of it. Because then if we get confused, we can kind of cross-check ourselves. We can draw a line from Keflavik to where we think we are and say, okay, well, we're that far. We're going to lose it here soon, I would imagine, though. We're up to 76 miles away from it. But as long as we keep Iceland on our left, we will be okay. We'll get where we're going. I'm just going to verify that this timer is going. So once that counts up to 18 minutes... which would be, for my modern brain, what, 15, like 3 or 4? We'll know we're getting close. And then I would expect to see something come in on these arrows too. But we are about 63 nautical miles away. Still checking the course, spread node 95. All right, we're going to do some more cruising. The next NDB is Sierra Romeo. I'm not even going to try to say the name. And after that, we're going to be picking up the Ingo VOR. So once we get a little bit closer, once we lose the Keflavik VOR, we're going to tune in the Ingo VOR just to have another distance reference. But I'm going to shut up for a while, and I'll see you guys then. Alright everybody, welcome back. It looks like we're actually passing it now. So, this body of water here, I don't know what the proper term is, it's probably a river, but maybe it says something else. The NDB is right past it. I haven't gotten it to tune in, I don't know why, it's not coming alive, but that's okay. So our next step is going to be going to the Ingo VOR, inbound at 077. So I'm going to tune that in now. And remember, we're not on localizer mode right now. It's just in gyropilot, so I can go ahead and take this. And then we're going to 122.8. Is that right? Looks about 122.4. I'm wrong. 122.4. So we're going to 122.4. Okay. And then that should come to life shortly. Or 112.4, yeah. At Ingo. And it should be 47 nautical, or it should be, that's not right, that's the next leg. It should be 40 nautical miles away. So it's not that far away. I'm not seeing it come in though. 112.4. And the chart says 112.4 Ingo. Okay, so we may not have that one either. And not to fear, because that's why we have a nice visual reference outside, which is going to be Iceland itself. It is strange that it's not tuning in. I just don't know if that's a sim issue or what. So we're going to go ahead and left turn to 077 or thereabouts. And well, let's try to do a half rate turn. And watching what direction we're going. That's 065. We'll level off now. We can also look at the compass. And we're leveling off. We're heading 070. And it should level off. And it has. So again, Iceland is on our left, so that's good. And if we get the VOR back, that's just a bonus. Although it is strange that it's not coming in. I had 112.8 in there for some reason. That's not what it says on the chart, but let's see if we get anything. I am getting something, but I think that's Keflavik, isn't it? Yeah, it is Keflavik, so I'm not getting anything. But I guess it's kind of useful to know that I'm 130 nautical miles from Keflavik. That's about right. So we'll make do. That's why I set this up so it has visual references. We're going to be kind of coming close to these mountains here, so that's the real impressive feature that's going to be coming up. We just want to make sure that we are off to the right of them and we give them enough berth. We should be just fine, but I think some of these guys get up pretty high, 6,000 feet, looks like on the VFR charts. So it'll be nice to look at least. And we're basically just following this line until we hit, there'll be another NDB. I'm going to go ahead and tune that in if we haven't already, on 330. 330. And I'm going to go ahead and put that in too, just in case we pick it up, because we're not getting anything off the dead one. And that one's coming in, so we're heading in, you know, more or less the right way, so that's good. It looks like Okay, so the VOR is still not. It's still Keflavik. So I'm going to troubleshoot this a little bit. I'm not going to lose any sleep over it. But that's where we are in the flight, and it looks like it's coming alive now. Okay, cool. So we're heading in about the right direction, and we could bring it left a little bit. We'll try a localizer. After this, we're at 35 miles from it. Once we cross it, we're going to be heading outbound at 064 for about 50 miles. And I'm just going to start the stopwatch too. I need to practice that if we're going to be doing this truly visually. Alright, so we'll cruise some more. We'll come up, see some cool mountains. And once we cross the VOR and we start getting in towards our last couple waypoints, we'll start briefing the descent and arrival. Alright. Alright, so Ingo is coming up. You can see we're coming in at about 8 miles away from it. It's showing 240 knots ground speed, so that's pretty good. And we can use that to kind of figure the next leg, which is going to be about 47 nautical miles. And we're going to do 210 or 240. But we'll do that after this. We're just going to be ready. I'm going to throw it into gyropilot mode. And it should keep this heading while I set up the outbound. So we're going to be going 064 outbound from Inga. Not a very long turn, and it should line up with the ADF. We're going to go to 064, and then once we cross it, we're going to turn onto that. And again, it should line up with what we're seeing on the ADF. It should be just a slight left turn. As we keep Iceland on our left, and we see the mountains. Very nice. Alright, so we've now passed the VOR station. We're going to go ahead and make a left turn. And just wait, and not a severe left turn, just till the needles start coming in. And then once the needles start coming in, we will throw it back into localizer mode and ride this out a little bit. We're just going to recenter there. We're in no real hurry. Because we also have the ADF. We know which direction we have to be going. So, let's center, we're going to put in a localizer. And the aircraft could get back in. So, I got distracted reading the charts. For BIEG, we're coming in, and this is why I don't fly in Europe on VADSIM, it's just because the charts look different. It's really not any more of a significant reason than that. And I'm sure the Europeans feel the same way. A little more for an airport diagram. I'm really just planning on doing pretty much a visual approach, looping around the airport and coming in from the north, or northeast, I guess. And it should give us, we should be in a nice wide valley and not have a whole ton of problems. And we do have a localizer, which we can tune. 109.3, I'm going to write that down the old-fashioned way. That should get us in that way. Just not really sure we're clear with here. Yeah, it is funny. It's all the same information. It's just presented in a slightly different way on the Jepson charts. I think they have these for the US too. I don't know. I don't have Navigraph. So it just takes a second to process the new information. I just want the airport. Just really simple. So yeah, I'm going to figure this out. We'll start thinking about when we want to descend. We have about 50 miles on this leg and then 68 miles to the airport. But again, if we're going to loop around, we're going to have plenty of room to descend. So we're going to play it by ear, and I'm going to start thinking about descending really after the next NDB at Hotel November. And I'll work out that math, and we will chat again once I have that figured out and we get closer to that thing. Okay, so interesting development here. We've lost the VOR, but visually, we can see we're about where we need to be. Below here, this, I don't know, island chain, I guess. It's not really that. I'm not up to date on my geographical terms for bodies of land and water, but this is about where we want to be. So, I looked at the approach. A lot of the approaches going north, entering from the south. I'm just not comfortable with the terrain in front of us. So there's going to be pretty high terrain until pretty late in the descent. So what we're going to do instead is we're going to still tune in the NDB we want to. We're going to loop kind of around and come in. There's a nice valley on the north side. And we need to tune in the NDB Mike November 382. That can stay 3. Go up to 400 and then down. So 382, we'll make sure we can pick this up. Again, there's some terrain that I'm not loving, and that's why I want to loop around from the north. Just because we'll have more time to get and do what we need to do without a bunch of mountains in the way. So that's not coming in yet. It may be blocked by the mountains, not sure. But the runway, the airport is basically going to be a little bit off to our left in a nice, I'd call it a river valley. And it'll be on the eastern side of the river. It's a single strip. We're going to be coming in to land on runway 21, it looks like. Yeah, so we're going to come in 21. It's going to take a little bit longer, but I got time. I got nowhere to be, and I'd rather, again, give myself more space and time when dealing with this thing, especially in the descent. And the dynamic duo over here, they don't get paid by the hour, so we're good. So I am going to bring us right a little bit. We're going to be basically fully visual, and I didn't take it out of localizer, so gyro pilot is now off. Let's go back to gyro pilot, shut it down. Altitude hold off, trim, okay. Gyro pilot on. Disconnect on, altitude hold on. Gyro pilot is set. We're just going to keep it going straight. And then I'm just going to bring us right a little bit. Maybe heading 090. Just go due east. But again, at this point, we're really looking out our left window and following the coast. And then that airport, the VOR or the NDB we tuned in near the airport is really a backup. And it should hopefully help us find it once we start thinking about final approach. We do have an ILS frequency. It's going to be 109.3, I believe. Yeah, 109.3. So again, while we're doing that, we can do that here. Because Keflavik VOR isn't doing us any good. 109.3. So once we get there, we can start to use those to hone in our position. But But essentially, if we look out, there's these mountains. We'd basically try to be descending through these mountains into the valley, but the valley comes up pretty late. So what we're instead going to do is kind of skirt around the coast and then come in north at the mouth of the valley. I may descend down to like 4,000 or 5,000 feet. Maybe 6,000 feet. 6,000 feet, because the VFR chart shows 4,900 being the highest. So we'll go down to 6,000 feet out here on this kind of leg, and then we'll start roughing in the descent for the final approach.